Israel is in massive trouble. There is a political scandal unfolding right now which could mean the end of Benjamin Netanyahu and adds to the absolutely massive pile of evidence that the war in Gaza, the assault in Gaza, the genocide in Gaza is only happening so he can stay in power. I promise you this explainer will be worth it. So, two people in Benjamin Netanyahu's team were today arrested involving a scandal to do with bribery and corruption, with money coming in from Qatari officials to Benjamin Netanyahu's team so they could do an influence campaign to make the Qataris look good in the World Cup they recently hosted. Even journalists are being questioned by the police because they may have been paid off to do this work. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, is already on trial right now, literally in court this week, for bribery and corruption related to his influence on media and communications companies inside of Israel. So the new allegations that came today, we're talking about more bribery, fraud, money laundering, and even contacts with foreign agents. And then it gets even crazier because Benjamin Netanyahu had to leave court today early during his own trial because he was being summoned by the Attorney General of Israel and be questioned in the Qatari corruption scandal, which is separate from his other charges that he was in court for. But this is when it gets even crazier and even deeper, so stay with me while I explain this. So Netanyahu is on trial for bribery and corruption, as I already said, and he has tried to use his position as Prime Minister to either stop and slow down these cases, because if he's found guilty, then he's likely going to go to jail, and that's it, it's over for him. So in the last few weeks, he has tried to fire the Attorney General who is prosecuting him, the one who summoned him today. He has also tried to fire the head of a security agency called Shin Bet, who is also investigating him and the government for their failures on October 7th, and they were also looking into the Qatari money. So Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, is trying to get rid of the people in the government investigating him. And then the two people that I mentioned at the start who already got arrested today in Netanyahu's team, one of them is called Eli Feldstein. He already got arrested and charged and indicted last year for leaking classified information to the press. His entire team is just corrupt. So the reason he did this was to trick people into believing that the hostages in Gaza were being taken to Egypt so public perception and criticism of the government would calm down. Essentially, they were trying to get more consent from the public to continue the war. And around the same time that this guy who was working for the Prime Minister's team got indicted last year, Benjamin Netanyahu's chief of staff was also arrested for allegedly blackmailing an IDF officer in the military. So this was in order to modify documents of top-level security discussions in the hours before the October 7th attack, because it was reported that they had intelligence a few hours before October 7th that a threat could be coming, so they tried to cover up their incompetency by blackmailing people. So they apparently took the phone of a woman who was married to the IDF officer, the one who was being blackmailed, and they said that they took the phone because they wanted to check that she wasn't leaking information, but secretly they did it so they could get information from her phone so they could blackmail her husband. Now, to bring this all together so it makes sense why the war and the genocide is continuing, the only way the Prime Minister has been able to stay in power is keeping his far-right coalition of multiple parties together. The far-right's conditions for the coalition is, firstly, keep the war going, decimate Gaza, because they believe it's their land and they want the Palestinians out. And their second condition is ramp up the assaults in the West Bank, where even more Palestinians live, and they want to steal more land and arrest thousands of people, which is exactly what they've been doing. We can prove so much of this because when Netanyahu was set to sign a ceasefire last year when he was in the US, he told US officials it was a done deal, verbally. Then he told his cabinet, his coalition cabinet, that he was interested in this ceasefire deal, and they said, no, if you sign it, we will collapse the coalition. Basically saying to Netanyahu that you're done for if you sign the deal. You're going to jail because you won't be able to stop the charges against you if you're a civilian. But if we keep the war going, you will get what you want and we will get what we want, which is Gaza, the West Bank, and more war. And Netanyahu has got what he wants. They're putting legislation through parliament which gives politicians immunity. They're putting legislation through that gives them even more power over judges in the judiciary. They even introduced legislation to stop people being arrested like the Prime Minister's team. They named it the Feldstein Law. The guy who got arrested today, Feldstein, the guy who got arrested last year, they named a law after him so people like him in the future can't be arrested. They're just giving themselves immunity. They're not even hiding what they're doing. And all of this is at the cost of the destruction of Gaza, tens of thousands of people losing their lives, mostly women and children, and the annexation of Gaza and the slower annexation of the West Bank. All of this just because one guy wants to stay in power and not go to jail.